Hi guys, good to see you all here. Familiar faces, not Wednesday CBD training faces, younger faces, which is good. So today we have a very, very interesting discussion on the table. We're tackling the digital economy. So for me, when I heard we were going to be tackling the digital economy, first thing that came to mind was the only place where I put my money in this virtual world, which is my fantasy football team. And I was quite shocked to see my triple captain scoring me 3 points yesterday, and a 50% chance of playing this next game. So if you know, you know. Anyway, jokes aside. So today's discussion is about tackling the digital economy. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things from us, multinationals. In the case of Facebook, Google, Amazon, how do we trade online? And how does that trade translate into the office? Number of ways. Number of ways. Number of ways. Train on digital rights, data governance. We worked with the ODPP and Safaricom to train prosecutors on digital forensics and digital evidence. Yes, so in addition, we'll be hosting the Africa Law Tech Festival. You can see the blue logo over there. The festival will be in March. It will be a 3-part festival. We are going to have an academy for both lawyers and techies. And we have a local legal hackathon on the digital rights, digital governance, and working as we work with the ODP to train we will also have our prospects and digital forensics, the Africa Law Tech Awards. Yes, so in addition, we will hosting the Africa Law Tech Festival. You can see the categories will be out. So this will be from the 8th to the 28th. We are going to have an academy for both lawyers and techies. The academies have a little bit of discussion about transmission rights, and working as we have the group study that we are producing documents and digital forensics. These events in Africa yes, so in addition, we use different another law tech festival. You can see the category for this will be 28. We are going to have an academy for both lawyers and techies. The academies have a little bit of discussion about transmission rights, and working as we have the group study that we are producing documents and digital forensics. These events in Africa yes, so in addition, we use different another tech festival. You can see the category for this will be 28. We are going to have an academy for both lawyers and techies. The academies have a little bit of discussion about transmission rights.
Like what they do. I want to give an intro, but
It's okay. No, it's okay.
it's okay. So now, close to the mic.
Okay guys, I just kindly request you move to the front. We fill up this spaces so the guys can later don't have to shuffle to get to the front. Then just occupy the seats at the front. Don't be shy guys, it's just us here. You know they say the year is a safe space. For the guys tuning in from the other countries, please also move to the front. Thank you guys. Don't worry, this front row, it's not reserved for anyone, it's reserved for you guys. You're special guests, our guests of honor. Anyway, thanks for coming guys. Before we start, just slightly behind schedule, just remind you guys that we're streaming this event outside of Nairobi. Considering it's a continental discussion, we kind of start just having it here. So we have the CC Hub, the CC Design Lab in Rwanda, streaming live. So the CC Design Lab is a research and technological development lab powered by a multidisciplinary design team. So they have designers in their team, engineers, researchers, and they all collaborate to explore the application of emerging technologies in order to solve Africa's systemic problems. This public health, education, and governance. It's African solutions to African problems. So thank you, Co-Creation Hub, for joining us. In addition, we also have Bongo Hive in Zambia, Lusaka, Zambia. I don't know what they say, how they say hi in Zambia. But they're also creating viable solutions that change the world. So they provide a range of startup and tech programs, workshops as well. They want to make Zambia Africa's next hotbed of innovation. We're thinking we should make Africa Africa's next hotbed of innovation. Finally, we have the Tech Village, which is streaming from Zimbabwe. They have space in Cape Town as well. So it's accumulation of years of entrepreneurial work that has been able to, build the Tech Village. So what the village does, oh wow. Right, the portfolio here. So yeah, we'll just jump right into our session. I'd like to introduce Catherine. She's been working very hard on this particular presentation. She's been working for 2 weeks on this presentation. Wow, very impressive stuff. I can't wait to see what you want. So anyway, Catherine is a tech policy fellow here at the Lawyers Hub. And she will be taking us through the basics of taxing the digital economy, just so that we have an understanding of what to expect. After which we have our panelists. I'll introduce our panelists. So take it over, Catherine.
Actually, this presentation is for Valerie. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Valerie Yeager. I'm a researcher at the Committee of Fiscal Studies and just finalizing my degree at the University of Nairobi School of Law. So happy to see some very familiar faces. So I'll just set the scene in terms of taxation of the digital economy, so that when the panelists come, you at least have a brief idea of what it is. So anytime I begin a presentation of tax, ideally, if you're a lawyer, you know this person, Oliver Wendell. So taxes are what you pay for a civilized society. Ideally, that is what will happen. So the question of the digital economy in a continental perspective, the first thing I thought about was let's start from home. So let's start from Kenya. Why is it that the government wants to really tax the digital economy? So first of all, any directive by the government has to have a base in law. And taxation comes from the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Article 201 talks about the principles of public finance that says that taxes should be shared. The burden of taxation should be shared fairly. So if you're having businesses that are traditional, your old taxi drivers coming into Uber, are they paying taxes? Your old malls, for example, now you're having platforms like Jumia coming online, are they paying taxes? So ideally, someone would reason that the digital economy is part of the traditional economy that has been transformed into the online platform. So that the government reasons that we should tax this economy. Basically, through the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see that there are taxes that the government can levy and there are taxes that the county government can levy. To define tax, tax is basically the compulsory contribution that is made to government. It could be workers' income, for instance, they pay as you earn. It could be business, it could be profits. So it could be corporation tax, it could be VAT that you pay when you buy goods. So when we talk about the digital economy, there is no precise definition for what the digital economy constitutes. So the best way to define it is to look at the elements that it constitutes of. So the digital economy has the e-commerce, what is generally known as the platforms that people trade. So for instance, you have Jumia, all these online malls, you have Amazon, eBay, and things like that. Then you also have the online payment services. So for instance, you have PayPal, Pioneer, all those constitute the digital economy because the transaction is happening online. And you have applications such as YouTube, you have online advertising, and you have cloud computing. So when you talk about taxation of the digital economy, the principle usually is for you to tax something, you need to understand where the money is moving from. So then I found it very important to look at the overview on digital business model. So for instance, there's been a conversation going about we want to tax Facebook, we want to tax Google, we want to tax Apple. So how do we do it? So you'll notice that I've just given a brief sort of summary of what business models are there, but this list is not conclusive. There are quite a number. For instance, with the subscription model, like what you do with Netflix. So for Netflix, you subscribe, you pay your monthly fee, and then you get to access the films. So how do you tax that? That's the question. There's the free model where Facebook now is free. You get that you can access the app. They're even now offering WhatsApp to be free. So how do they get their money? So in a free model, the user becomes the product. Basically what they do is that they use the data to make money. Then we have the on-demand model. So on-demand is where you use the application to get a service. For example, if you hail an Uber, that's an on-demand model because it has gotten you the service to get a taxi or a car. Then we also have the access over ownership. So basically what happens here is the likes of Airbnb. And Airbnb is essentially what you previously had as the hospitality industry. So for instance, before you go to a hotel, pay money and be accommodated. Now you can do that in someone's house. Someone has decided to put their house online to create business, therefore creating value. Looking at the Kenya's digital taxation, so Kenya definitely has not been left behind in trying to come up the conversation countries that have brought in the issue of taxing the digital economy in their own countries. So first, we have Kenya, which I've just explained, which is the Finance Act 2019, introducing the digital marketplace as well as the taxes. Then we also have Zimbabwe under their Income Tax Act, which was an amendment to their budget, where they introduced the tax on e-commerce and satellite broadcasting service, which targets foreign vendors. We also have Ghana. In their act, they put VAT of 15% on e-commerce, which covers businesses, basically looking at an issue where first we want to understand this company that is providing services, where are they getting their market from? So for instance, Facebook is getting the market from Kenya, but Kenya is still not able to tax Facebook because Facebook do not have a permanent residence in this country. Second, we want to look at what is the nexus rule. Basically, if there is no physical presence, are we then required to create something called a virtual permanent establishment? So then we need to know how can we tax these companies who are not here physically, but their impact is being felt in the country in terms of business, profit, and value creation. There's also reliance on intangible assets. So next, I'll move to the UNTC proposal. Basically, the UNTC is the United Nations Tax Committee. It's a subcommittee on taxation that looks at issues to do with taxation at a global level. So in the 18th session, they looked at digital economy taxation, and the main takeaway from that was that what is the impact of the OECD proposals on developing countries. So if you dissect the OECD proposals, you realize that they are looking to, one, have a minimum threshold. So basically, for you to pay tax, you need to have a minimum threshold, you need to have reached a certain threshold for you to be able to be said to be having created value in a certain country. But the reality is that the kind of thresholds that are in the proposal cannot be met by countries that have low economies. So basically, the UNTC is saying, one, this threshold cannot be met by developing countries. Two, some of the solutions that are being created are too complex for the equipment and capacity in African countries. So then how can we change this? Third is that dispute settlement process, if you're doing international tax, things like arbitration are quite costly, especially if you're going to do them at a global level. Having all these countries, especially for developing countries, who then cannot be able to afford to even have the arbitrators who are going to appear for them at these spaces. And also to look at the issue of avoiding double and non-taxation. So for instance, if you do not meet the So moving closer to the continent, we have data. Data is African. And they look at how can this, because ATAC is looking to create solutions for African countries. We take a proposal that is meant for the global north and want to apply it directly to the global south. And just like I always say, you cannot take your neighbor's solutions to fix your own family because it's different. So you always need to have a specific country by country threshold. This is where, for instance, if money is being made in a certain African country, let it be valued in terms of taxing, right, according to the economy of that country and not according to the global proposal. And second, again, we have the simplification of tax administration. Like I said, some of the solutions that are being made globally are not simple enough for African countries to be able to adapt as they are. Again, number two, we have the robust and effective tax dispute resolution mechanism. So we want a tax dispute resolution mechanism that can be suitable for African countries. Say if you're going to do arbitration, then we need to know that that arbitration can be afforded by African countries. They can represent themselves. They can give a case for themselves in case of tax dispute. Finally, there's always the issue where whenever proposals are being made globally, you will find that African countries are sending revenue officials. But again, revenue officials, just like what you have now in Kenya as KRA, what they do is they collect tax. They do not make policies. So what we need to have is that political goodwill to have the finance ministries take upon themselves to ensure that that people who are in these spaces making policy globally are people who are well versed in policy making when it comes to taxation, so that they can be able to argue for African perspective. As I finalize, before the panel discussions come on, there are things you need to think about when it comes to taxation of the digital economy. One, I'm sure many of you might have heard about the digital services tax that France wanted to impose on the US and on basically the data companies, that is Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. So at first it was such a good initiative because finally we are going to see big companies being taxed. But what the US do, they retaliated and said they would put tariffs on France, and then France will not be able to trade with them freely. So now, in the currently ongoing, there's a World Economic Forum where issues are being discussed, and one of the issues that came about is the digital services tax that France was trying to impose. And we've had the truce that has been made between the US and France holding off on the digital taxes. So what exactly does that mean for African countries? I mean, if the US and France can say, let's hold off on this tax, how do you expect an African country to then tax the data companies? We need to think about that. Second, we have the issue of internet connectivity within Africa. You see, for the digital economy to thrive, you need to ensure that people can be able to access the internet and actually make business on the internet. According to the statistics that were run by AFNIC, which is the Number Resource Management for Africa, Africa is just reaching its last landing of IPv4, meaning most of Africa is not even connected to the internet. So if you start taxing the digital economy now, what then happens to people who already cannot access it, therefore cannot benefit from it? Will they be more encouraged to come on, or will they be encouraged to stay off of it? Yes, that also just managed the third point of innovation versus revenue collection. Because you notice the population of Africa is largely the youth. And the youth, due to many problems, including unemployment, have now capitalized on innovation to be able to create self-employment for themselves. So if you are taxing them, will we then discourage them and ensure that they don't come on? Or again, we run the risk of having to miss out on taxes that other people are taxing. Like I told you, there are certain traditional businesses that are coming online that were previously open and were being taxed, but are now coming online. So will we now collect the taxes or run the risk of not collecting taxes and running down our country? Finally, there's the issue of data protection, freedom of expression, as well as privacy. You see, when it comes to digital economy, if you make a transaction today, if you buy something online and pay for it, how then will I know who you paid it to and how have you paid it? Do we now have the issue where Karen came out strongly and said they want to be in conversation with Safaricom to allow them gain access and entry into M-Pesa messages? Does that bring an issue of privacy, data protection? We need to think about that. Thank you.
Lots time to think about. It's interesting we're having this discussion right now, considering what's going on in Davos. If you see when the conversation about taxing the digital economy came up there was little to do with, Africa's place in the conversation. So I guess this could be the African equivalent of the World Economic Forum. Anyway, so I'll just present our panelists before we go into the panel session, which we're really looking forward to. Fun fact, before I give the spoilers, we don't have a manual today. We rarely have manuals. So if you don't know what a manual is, you're going to see for yourself here. First up, we have Anne Salim, Policy Advisor at Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya, aka ASEC. I'm glad that Anne is here to join us because she does represent the entrepreneurial community. She's the voice of the entrepreneurial community. So So if you're looking to start a business somewhere down here next to community, then if you can see her after, she'll give you some tips. Second, most times when we have presenters here, when we have a Q&A, someone will stand up and say, I can see my lecture now, it's there on the panel, and I'm sitting here normally tweeting, I'm like, hey, now me each day with my lecture now here on the panel. So today's the day. I'm very proud to introduce Esther Mshiri, tax law lecturer from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Alums, definitely I see you. And wow, special shout out to you, Robert. Karibu sana. Robert is a senior manager of mergers and acquisition and tax at Ernst Young. Karibu, Robert. Finally, we have Mangwe Karuga. She's a principal associate tax department at Anjawala in Ghana. So, Mangwe, for the record, we joined the Kenya School of Law in February, and I'll get eligible for fifth early next year, just for the record. Do what you will with that information. Finally, we have my fellow tech policy fellow here at the Lawyers Hub, Kathy Muya. So, Kathy will be moderating the session. I think you can now see what I meant when I said we don't have a panel today. So this is a heavily female panel. So girl power, right? So guys, just a reminder that we are also streaming live on YouTube, and we have other hubs from all over the continent joining us, hubs in Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe. So karibuni, that means welcome in Swahili, guys. We hope you will enjoy the discussion, and we hope that we'll unpack a lot of topics in this conversation. I think the Q&A for me is what I'm really looking forward to. I have a lot of questions because when is Amazon coming to Kenya, passing its fast? So yes, I'll just hand over to you guys.
Okay, so we have a very tax topic ahead of us. I don't know if you're gonna have as many jokes as Selena, but we'll try. So I'll just let the panelists introduce themselves, maybe say something about them. You've already had who they are, but maybe they just want to say something to discuss. Good evening, everybody. I'm very humbled and happy to be part of this exciting conversation across borders. My name is Mangwe Karuga, as you've heard. I'm a tax expert, an advocate of the High Court, and a certified accountant with ACCA. I'm a principal associate at Anjawala and Ghana Tax Department, where we're a team of around 10 lawyers, which is the largest actually tax department in Kenya. Formerly, before Anjawala and Ghana, I was at KPMG for the last 6 years.
Good evening, Robert Maina from Ernst Young. I'm a senior manager there, looking after mergers and acquisition from a tax perspective. This is my first time to attend this session, and I'm happy to be in the midst of many lawyers. I'm an economist, trainings, and as well as an accountant. So happy to be part of this team. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Esther Mshiri Otieno. I wear so many caps. I'm a law lecturer. I teach revenue and tax law at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. I am the head of consulting and training at Norman Otieno and Company Advocates. And I am a PhD candidate at the University of Nairobi. And the theme topic today happens to be my research topic in my PhD level. Other things, I'm a mother of 2, and I'm a wife. And thank you so much for inviting us and enabling us to have this conversation.
Finally, I'm Anne Salim. I represent the Association of Startup Enablers and SMEs Kenya, which is really a collective of people who work with startups, organizations like all the hubs, including Lawyers Hub, who are a member, financing companies like venture capitalists. They're some of them are members, and sometimes we work with even some governments who are members who are enabling and supporting the startup ecosystem to thrive. I wear many hats like the rest. My day job, I build edtech apps at Longman Publishers. I'm happy to say we have a subsidiary in Law Africa, so I have some roots with the law as well, or friends who work there, or colleagues. And finally, I'm happy to be here. I'm not necessarily a tax expert, but I work with the tech companies that are in this economy right now struggling with issues of double taxation or how to deal with taxing whenever they are crossing borders with their tech. So I'm happy to contribute as much as I can on what's happening in the ecosystem and our views on the issue, and I look forward to a very interesting deliberation. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start with you, Robert. So Valerie tried to tell us more about digital economy, less digital economy, but I want to understand what is digital economy. Like, for example, if I want to buy something on, like, if an app like, or a website like Shaky.com is also part of digital economy. So what is it?
Okay, definitely that's a good question. And frankly speaking, when this discussion started coming out a few years ago, the question was, are we now seeing the traditional economy and we have the digital economy? And the question is, I mean, the same activities are being done, they are still being done, but the fact that now they're being done in a different way. More or less, we are seeing that things like data, how people transact. A few years ago, you had to go to a bank, you had to do so many things. For you to buy anything, you have to go to a supermarket. Now you can buy from the US or any other country that you want. So it's just the stage in terms of how value is derived. I think before you used to say the two main things that you need to do anything was like capital and labor. And mainly the capital you are referring was the brick and mortar. Now we are seeing that another thing key resources when you want to start a bit. So the digital economy is that shifting in terms of the value creation and how things are being done to how now they're being done through the digital interface that we have.
So what you mean ideally is that you can have the digital, completely digital, and the traditional businesses that are somehow going digital.
Yes, frankly speaking, I think you might say every business now, you will hear any CEO, every will be saying that we are going digital. In a bank, I mean, the lawyers or even as the tax consultant, they are saying they are doing everything digital. Because it's the fact that how we used to do things, we can no longer do them the same way and expect to get the same outcome. And aligning to that.
Okay, so as Kenya, we have tax as digital economy.
Right now is there are two things to put in mind. Number one is whether it's the old business just with new methodology of doing it, or the new entrance into the digital economy world. So like selling things in the digital space is not really new. It's just that now it's been widely and vastly spread. It's moved from America, where people just used to buy things in Amazon, to now to and the thing is, we are putting a lot and inordinate focus in that methodology and not
to scale, for example, to Uganda or any such country.
Yes. So yeah, I previously worked for IHOP for a number of years, and so I had the opportunity of working with some of the startups that have now in Jumia, we have our own local company, Sky Garden, that was built by Kenyans here in the local market that provides similar or better service like Jumia, right? Loan financing applications that are providing you with access to money at credit or credit services, and they traverse the borders, East Africa. You can find the same services across, so they apply as well. And there's several. There's Teles and there's several in fintech. Sorry. And then we're looking at which other sectors, agri-tech as well. So there's so many Kenyan companies and Kenyan companies with foreign multinationals that are providing these services that are eligible. I don't know if I covered it.
Yeah, you have. So, Esther, so to sort of understand, Valerie in her presentation was throwing around words like permanent establishments, nexus. I know what else she's throwing around, but just sort of understand what all these things are. Maybe you can explain to us the system we have now that is used to tax foreign companies, so we can understand this whole digital thing.
Okay, to start with, Valerie, that was a very informative presentation. To start with, we have Section 3 of the Income Tax Act that provides for taxation or which establishes now aspects of permanent establishment, issues to do with the source and the resident principle. And to start with, one thing we must understand about permanent establishment is that it connotes the incorporation of a corporate entity, say within the Republic of Kenya, and also where taxation is based on such incorporation, and where in instances where a company has not been incorporated in Kenya but operates and has a subsidiary or has a physical presence for a specified period of time within the confines of the law, then such company becomes taxable. There are several parameters that are applicable in as far as the connotation of permanent establishment is concerned. And this goes hand in hand with aspects of the source and also aspects of the resident, whether a company is resident or non-resident. And like I said, there are different parameters. One about incorporation, two about the period of existence within the Kenyan jurisdiction, for example, which includes the 183-day rule, the 123-day rule. And in as far as digital taxation is concerned, we find that all these specified parameters, to a greater extent, do not work for the taxing authority, which is definitely KRA. And no wonder we organizations that column, whether it's resident or non-resident. But on the other side, it will be difficult to tax Amazon, despite the fact that value creation was originated from Kenya as a jurisdiction.
Okay, so Robert, she said it will be difficult. Why?
Frankly speaking, yeah, it will be difficult because there's a political angle to this one. Like in the US, most of these companies are in the US, and so they also trying to protect how much tax they get out of it. So Donald Trump, and they're telling me that this company will also be paying in other countries, a lot of pushback against it, and I guess that's why he's pushing France and other countries which are trying to implement in that legislation. So the political aspect is one thing. The other thing is, for instance, I know we are talking of the big companies, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet. I think the main four. So how many other companies are offering services in a digital manner that outside this? Would they even know that transacting with a company which has been set up in Silicon Valley or in any other jurisdiction outside Kenya? Can they track the number of transactions this company has had with people who are in Kenya? How can they even monitor compliance? So the issue is the big companies, yes, we can maybe, based on the fact that they also want to maintain the reputation, they comply, but there are so many other players who are also doing the digital business or in that space. How do you even monitor that they are doing it? You might say they should pay 3% of their revenue generated from Kenya. How do you get to know that the revenue generated in Kenya? So the practical bit of it, implementing, I think that's the key issue that has to be dealt with.
Okay, so Corey, Esther also mentioned the OECD is trying to do something about it. So even before we go towards the OECD is trying to do, what is the OECD?
So, I'm sure most of you are familiar with that term. So the OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's a 36 member-based country organization that just seeks to come up with policies and best practices really in carrying out business and taxes across the member states. So,
Oh yeah, okay. So what is it trying to do for us? Like, is it even trying to do it for us as Africa?
So as part of coming up with tax policies and tax in an evolving and changing world, there are several initiatives that have been put in place. And because digital economy and digital tax has become a global and cross-border topic due to globalization and making this world one village, there are several initiatives from OECD and other players like the UN tax model that are trying to come up with ways of taxing this new idea, so to speak. So as my two panelists have alluded, most of the tax legislation globally is based on physical presence. So it was based on the old traditional brick and mortar business where you have to incorporate an entity, be resident in that country for you to carry out business and for you to be taxed in that jurisdiction. But as we know, the world is changing, and now we have a lot of cross-border transactions, cross-border businesses that are happening, and they constitute to a larger chunk of revenue for this country, for this organization. So what the OECD is trying to do is to come up with a policy that will introduce digital taxation across its member states, or just come up really with a method of taxing the digital economy. And what they have done is they are considering two things. So number one is what we are calling nexus, and number two is what we are calling profit allocation. So if a multinational entity is carrying out business in a country where they don't have presence, where they have not incorporated a subsidiary or a branch, how do we tax that revenue? Or how does Kenya get a chunk of the Netflix fees that you're paying to Netflix in America, for instance? And number two, profit allocation is to come up with a mechanism of how that revenue that is earned by Netflix in America can be attributed to Kenya because many of us who enjoy and pay for Netflix from the comfort of our homes. So that's the OECD regime. And they're thinking of just how do we establish this profit allocation. So number one, they're giving things like user participation. So user participation would be, if your revenue is 1 billion, what do we attribute from the Kenyan market? If you say you earn 800 million from, 200 million from the 1 billion from Kenya, then that 200 million we want to tax it in Kenya. Number two is things to do with where the value has been created. As Kenya, we do not know where the Netflix software runs, what the research cost and development cost going to it. So we can't claim 80% of the revenue that is paid to Netflix from Kenya, where the value was not really created in Kenya. So those are the kind of arguments that OECD is thinking about. On a parallel angle is the UN tax model, and most African countries are very careful to choose between OECD and UN because the world will encourage you to adopt OECD. But is it working for us as Africa and for us as Kenya? So at least in Kenya, we have a representative who sits in the UN Model Tax Committee, a former Kenya officer, and the UN model approach is a fixed digital tax. So like what France has done, you say out of all your revenue that you earn, you just want 3%. So UN tax model is trying to just take that simplistic approach. Let's come up with a percentage, a very minimal percentage, and just tax your revenue. Of course, there are challenges and controversies around this because global taxation principles is you don't tax revenue, you tax profits. So if we tax a fixed percent of your global revenue in Kenya, what if the Kenyan business is loss making? We're just here in Kenya because we want Netflix to have a wider range of visibility. But strictly speaking, the business for Netflix in Kenya could be loss making. Here, Uber is very loss making in Kenya, but they're still here. So if they consolidate their global income in Netherlands, then maybe they make profit. But if you look at Kenya revenue solely, they could be loss making. So if you say we want a percentage of the revenue earned in Kenya, you'll end up taxing a loss making company. So there are very many challenges in adopting either approach, and that is why, in as much as these two global organizations are spearheading this discussion, they have both not come up with a mechanism of taxing the digital economy. So in my humble opinion, I stand corrected, is if we as Kenya or African countries try to go ahead of the game for the path to adopt digital tax, it will be a bit premature. Because one, the digital economy in Kenya and in Africa is at a very infancy stage. So if we introduce tax, will we make the participants, like from SMEs who want to put their products and services in the digital space, will we hinder that accessibility to market because it's more expensive because of the tax? So these are things we, as government and policy makers, they really need to put in place and consider before we rush to introduce digital tax.
Okay. That was heavy. So, Esther, Koi has said, we can come up with a figure, 3%. But do you think it's very easy as the globe, as the world, to just agree on a figure, which we can now say, we will now tax this company X percentage, like we shall agree on 3, we shall agree on 12.5, we shall agree on 5.
Okay, definitely it's not easy. This is based on the fact that there will be countries that will lose out on income, on revenue from taxation if they go the percentage way in terms of profit allocation and allocation of rights, of taxing rights. And also you look, okay, let me first look at it from this perspective. One, the engagement of African countries, or Africa as a bloc in the global platform, in terms of them building this consensus with the global norm. Definitely, there is lack of representation at the high table. So the take-up of these percentages, whichever way it goes, is to the detriment of the African continent and the developing countries, both sub-Saharan and otherwise. So that is number one. Number two, you realize that some of these take-ups of these percentages are in the best interest of the developed world and the global north. So to that extent, like we are looking at the ongoing, the World Economic Forum, where we've seen the bone of contention between France and the US in terms of taxing the global giants, and the US in sanctions based on tariffs on France companies, because France decided to have a 3% tax on digital services. So what does that reflect, or what does that say in terms of building a consensus in as far as taxation of the tech giants is concerned? Then that means, in as far as Africa is concerned, it will fail. One, because Africa will be losing out on its bigger share to these global giants, and without a stake or a sense of representation in terms of how did we arrive at this 3%.
Maybe if I may just ask one thought. For example, in Africa, we're not also the same population. For example, you have maybe countries like Nigeria being more populous than Kenya, other countries being smaller. So that's exactly the size, and internet penetration also is something else to consider. That maybe, for example, one country has more internet users, even though it might be smaller, or vice versa. So how is that also going to contribute to maybe not having a uniform even figure, maybe as African countries?
Definitely yes. Based on the fact that we need to consolidate the consumer intake of these technologies, and in the determination of the value. The most important aspect is the determination of the value, and this value arises from the consumption of digital goods and services. So now, when you look at the determination of this value and how it arises, then you realize factors such as digital widespread, the use of data, the use of internet, the use of currently in Kenya we have fiber optic and others. The connectivity levels determines the consumer base. And then once you've been able to determine the consumer base, the other aspect we must look at is how about the aspects of marketing? About the aspects of digital search engines, digital apps? To what extent do we accrue value that now makes us realize this income that is now supposed to be determined as gains and profits that should now be subjected to this supposed percentage of taxation? Then to that extent you realize that to a greater extent, definitely countries like Nigeria, which has a bigger population, might have a take home. But also, the most important aspect we must all focus our minds on is how much is this digital presence in one jurisdiction as opposed to another. For example, if we are considering to adopt the aspects of economic blocks, the first question we are asking is, let's consider the East African Community Bloc. To what extent is it so much consolidated to being able to accord themselves the aspect of a bargaining power before the global platform? Then if that is the way to go, then the next thing we'll be asking is, if we are to consider Africa as a continent, and with all these economic blocks, to what extent will we have the SADC, for example, taking what percentage of these profits, and then let's say a global company like Google has presence all over Africa, and then we're talking about Nigeria with a big population, and then now they're talking about global economic blocks. Then now we are talking about our very own East African Federation, which is politically very integrated, but economically disintegrated. To what extent then do we get this bargaining power to get more profits allocated to us, and then now considering the percentages applicable for specific country as a jurisdiction, then you find that yes, the 3% may apply, but there are countries that will get more than others. And that now creates or presents the principles of inequality, which are basically against our general principles of taxation. Yeah.
Yeah, so Heather, so she's more alluding, like the global focus is, let's all come together, let's all decide on something. But the African uptake has been, for example, each country has its own way of taxing digital economy. So for example, Kenya will say, we have said Section 3 of the Income Tax Act will tax digital economies and will put VAT. South Africa has said non-residents of South Africa companies trading in South Africa have to register for VAT. And Uganda goes on to now tax the consumers. So do you think we're getting it wrong as a continent?
Well, at an African level, I would imagine every revenue authority would like to be seen as remaining behind. You always want to be seen as taking the initiative and part of the discussion. So, but how I'm looking at it, when you say the digital economy, see, there is that addition by the KRA. But if you have a digital company set up in Kenya, like we do have so many digital companies in Kenya, we have our own perspective. Never any started, but that was the idea to have so many multinationals doing the digital work from perspective. If that was to be actualized, it would be like the US. You'll be asking there, because those companies will be now expanding from Kenya, going to Uganda, Zimbabwe, and any other country. So we will be in the same position as the US, trying to say these companies are based in Kenya. Why then do you want to tax them in Zimbabwe and these other countries? Because just that most of these companies are based in the US. But if Kenya was to become the hub for Africa, for the digital companies, we would be in the same position, trying to fight for our taxing rights. So the other thing is that I think the key thing that everyone is focused on, let's say Facebook. What is the value of Facebook? It's what you post there. You post everything, they'll know it. You go to this site, this is what you like. So any moment you open Facebook, the first advert you get is targeted to you because they know this is your interest area. So they'll be saying this is the value that Facebook gets from Kenya. So if you have 2 million users in Kenya, and you are saying 3% of their revenue will be paid in these other countries, then you'll be saying it's only based on the number of users who are based in that country. So in Nigeria there are 100 million, but they only have 1 million users. Kenya we are much less, but because of the internet connectivity, we have many more users. So Kenya can actually get more revenue based on the number of users as compared to Nigeria. Because you'll be talking about values derived by the fact that any time I go in, I'm getting targeted advertising. So that revenue is going direct to the US. So there's a digital aspect of companies which are already operating in Kenya, which are many, and the ones we maybe because any income derived from Kenya is anyway taxable. So if I set up a digital company in Kenya, I'll still be computing my profits and paying tax. So the only thing that we are not taxing is mainly, I would say, the social aspect, the social media site, or the streaming services from the US. But any other company set up in Kenya, whether digital or not, they will have still be paid tax as usual.
So if I may ask maybe you and Anne to just answer what we have. So assume I want to have a startup. Like for example, Ko is going to tell us about the innovation challenge and how they're accepting startups and stuff like this. So I want to make a startup. I just sit down, I asked my friend Brian, can you help me code this? And he agrees. And then now we already have a startup, so we just, let's say for example, most common startup I see is maybe someone wants to list houses, for example. Like, so I see many apps, Ikejani, I don't know, GGPay, oh no wait, another, Tejahan, another one, so many. So all I do is I go to someone, let's say for example, you have a house, come and say, okay, so for example, you want to list your house, let me take pictures of your house, and then put it on my website, and if someone calls me or contacts me, and then I'll come and show them or something like that. I think you pay me a commission because that will be my business model because I'm listening for you. So at what point in that ecosystem, am I liable to pay taxes? Like, will KRA ever find out that I have an app, or will they just like, when one KRA officer is looking for a house, like, oh my goodness.
I think that is valid, and that's why probably part of the proposal is that clearly you say the thing, for you to get a pay bill number, you must have a PIN. So I think that's one of the ways they are trying to ensure that, let's say you have that app, but the only way people pay you your fees is via the Safaricom pay bill number. So they know this pay bill number, they give 10 million in this year. Whether you went to them, they will now be trying to establish from Safaricom and who is this person registered at XYZ. So some of these small missions might look small, but they are really focused on what they are doing.
I'd like to say a lot of our members encourage the startups they support to be registered, whether you're registered as a business or as a limited liability company, because once you're registered, I mean, there's a lot of benefits that you can also tap into. But with regards to will KRA ever find you? Yes, they will. I read an article recently that said KRA is looking to work with the Communication Authority of Kenya to track how many downloads you've been having through your application and if any financial payments were done within your application. Of course, we don't have the laws and policies in place to support the data transfer yet, but it's coming, right? So one of the things we say with startups is, so long as you're deriving revenue, already you're paying for every transaction you take. You notice for some transactions you're paying VAT, right? So already the startups are contributing to tax, right? For professional services, there's this professional levy that's levied by the government. It's still charged, whether you serve it. Eventually it gets to you, and when you don't do that, you end up paying the tax by your personal incomes when you're declaring your pay as you earn. So are we already being taxed? Yes. Members are already being taxed? Yes, the startups are being taxed. For all these innovation challenges that are happening, to be honest, we really encourage, we know hackathons happen and ideas are born, but for bigger competitions that are regional, we really encourage the startups that are signing up to be a registered entity. Because the complications start with when we are trying to award the reward money. You won, what happens next? And then after you're starting to derive value. I think even when you have the pay bill number or the buy goods number, Safaricom still taxes you, the tax still eventually gets to the government. The big question we should be asking is, can there be some form of consolidated tax? Because in some cases, SMEs are being overtaxed. When you count all the different small taxes we're paying, it ends up being bigger than the 30% corporates being paid, right? On the other hand, SMEs we've not been very good. Some of us have been running away from paying tax and declaring zero returns. So it's a catch-20 situation. Should we be taxed? Yes. How much we should be taxed is really the question we should be having. I would jump into a controversial issue. I think it's the betting companies that ruined it for because to be honest, a lot of their platforms are being used to collect a lot of revenues, but the revenues are not remaining in the country, right? And so that issue is also still a really sticky situation, and we're seeing KRA and the betting companies going head to head. So if I build the next Facebook tomorrow, or if any of our enablers support a startup that builds a really big company that blows up, and to be honest, we have several companies started in Kenya that are operating in over 10 or 20 countries and doing really well. So how do we protect those companies that are originated in Kenya from being double taxed? Should we then focus on setting up the law and the double taxation like the US has done for many of its companies, or should we tell up, he was saying, in blocks? So that then, if we're protected under block treaties, then we can create a more friendly environment for more digital companies to thrive. I think this is some of the questions we should be really debating on as well.
Do you have a comment?
Yes, I had a comment based on their contributions. I start with hers that has got to do with the sharing of information with the Communications Authority of Kenya. And Valerie raised an issue that we've actually been discussing behind here. We were talking about the right to privacy that is guaranteed under the Constitution of Kenya, vis-a-vis the deliberate presentation of your information by the Communications Authority of Kenya to KRA for purposes of taxation. So here we present ourselves to the Data Protection Act, One of the most important aspects that we must all understand is to what extent are the laws to your advantage in terms of protecting your privacy, in as much as I fully support aspects of taxation in tax compliance. Then the next point goes to, the next point is with regard to his contribution in as far as pay bill, bank transactions, M-Pesa, and what have you are concerned. But also, have you focused your mind on blockchains and payment via blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin? And to what now this takes us to the challenge, the real challenge in terms of focusing on taxing income gains and profits from digital businesses, whereas there are some substantive elements in terms of corporates that have decided to hide their incomes with or through the payment of options such as use of blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin, for example. So it's really, it's obviously very easy, and that this is what KRA is mostly emphasizing on, that most transactions are captured with or through the bank transactions, for example. They were talking, the lawyers, we all know that recently there are these regulations and policies requiring that large transactions on land, on assets, assets basically must be captured through bank transactions. But the question is, how about transactions that have been transacted online? Buying and selling of goods happens online, and payment is in forms of cryptocurrencies and bitcoins. We must all focus our minds on trying to capture that. Even those that go to the dark web, you all know what dark web means. So how can our advanced systems of taxation capture that for revenue sake, say within the Republic of Kenya?
So, just before you move, Anne has said, like, an ideal situation would be to consider startups, what they need, and try to make this environment easier for them without a lot of taxation. So, African countries have tried to do something. You know, they have ATF. You know, they converged together and came up with a few recommendations. So, what is Africa proposing to the OECD?
Number one is the ability to have a representation of Africa as a continent, and based on not just one country representation, but basically majority, several states at the high table. I always call it the high table because that's where the money should, where money is being subdivided. And the rich man takes the big share, and the rest of you have to take the smaller share. You really have to fight for a stake in the smaller share, or you tell the rich man that I also need a share of your money, right? So in that sense, then that means one of the ATA's main advocacy, especially during the recent conference, the tax justice conference, the conference that was about the taxation of the digital economy. One of the, I remember the director, I think he's the director, Logan what? The CEO, I don't know, I just check online. I remember his Logan what. One of the things he advocated for was unity of purpose. This unity of purpose will help Africa have a bargaining power in the realization of resolutions that will capture a consensus on how to tax the digital economy. Number two, we also have aspects such as dispute resolution, where countries will not agree on who to get what share, where there has been creation of value in specific areas or specific jurisdiction. Then one of the basic aspects that actually mostly the non-governmental bodies have been pushing or have been highlighting on organizations like the AU is to ensure that if it gets to us to the point where we have trade wars arising from unfair trade competition, and this unfair trade competition originates from profit erosion, tax-based erosion and profit shifting, where multinational entities transfer their profits to lower tax jurisdiction, and where they also want to trade or transfer their products to jurisdictions with low tax. Hence, we see aspects of the aspects I mentioned of unfair trade competition. So there has got to be a resolution, a kind of position where countries can agree on how to trade, on how to tax, so that now it does not, the real effect does not go down to the trade aspects. Now, in as far as unfair tax competition is concerned, it's an unforeseen problem of the future in as far as the taxation of the digital economy is concerned. Right now, it has been imminent in aspects of transfer pricing. Now, how about if at all we come up with an international consensus, then how will countries deal with dispute resolution in as far as disagreements of how much goes to which country is concerned?
Just say something on that. If you've ever read, I know none of us have read them, if you've ever read the terms and conditions of every app you subscribe to, if you scroll further down to the bottom, it finds small print. It says any disputes will be resolved at the country of origin where the app was built. So I think for alternative dispute resolution, we've already lost the battle by accepting the terms and conditions of the app builder. Already the framework is that you have to go and do any dispute resolution in their country.
So in the circumstances, then that means we have a way forward. But you see, not all digital platforms have that kind of clause. Or in the circumstances where they have, then it works to the disadvantage of the parties in dispute. If, say, the app was built in one continent and the dispute arises in another continent.
Well, actually, to that, when I was watching the World Economic Forum on digital tax this week, one of the issues they raised was one of the proposals from the OECD is to have an arbitration tribunal. So this means these companies have really large amounts of profit, and we have to choose arbitration. So if we choose arbitration, there are many things like where is the seat of arbitration? Can we afford to keep going back and forth for this arbitration? So for African countries, can we choose who the arbitrator becomes? I feel like these are issues that come out of arbitration, right? Ideally. So, oh yeah, so wait, have you guys ever heard or watched of Cambridge Analytica? I know, out of the box. You're wondering why is she asking, right? Like, anyone ever watched the documentary? Or heard of it? You know, like in taxi politics. So the issue is, what comes out of this Cambridge Analytica thing is the idea that people can build something. Like people have the expertise to sit down and map data, right? And so when Robert was speaking earlier, he's like, we have to have information, KRA doesn't have this, or tax authorities don't have this. So in your opinion, how can we help, like for example, other people who can capacity build for this internet or in African countries, for example, who can capacity build for revenue authorities, for example. So that ideally, what we don't have right now is, for example, when Koi was speaking, she's like, I have Netflix, I'm streaming on Netflix, and I pay Netflix maybe using my card. So the only thing I can do is, they probably couldn't know how much money, or we are trying to say that this digital system, we can't attribute what comes from what. So can we imagine that we can build something that can tell us?
Yes, the Silicon Savannah, we try not to use that term very much, but it is what it is. We're big and very good developers and companies capable of building intelligence tech. Can we build it? Yes. Do we want to build it? I think I hate to use this example, but Mark Zuckerberg, when he was being interviewed during the tribunal hearings, he said, "I didn't know my tech could be used so badly." And it's the same. I think a lot of us who worked on different projects looking at how tech is being used in different sectors in Kenya and the East African bloc, we've seen tech being used well and tech being used inappropriately to spy and to infringe on human rights and things like that. But forget me and my thoughts, KRA has said they have the capacity to build intelligent tech. And even as they're reaching out to the Communication Authority of Kenya, that they have the capacity to do it, and they have brilliant people working there. So I think yes.
So, maybe you can tell us, now that KRA said they're going to have this digital tax, and they're also going to start it, is there a way, but how are they likely to do it? Are they ready? Or can we still?
Just to explain, these are my views, very personal, and not views on the farm. So, my personal take on that is maybe we are rushing so fast before we can fall. Because KRA as it stands, we have missed our revenue targets year on year. We've had deficit. While we are trying to look for this monstrous thing called digital tax that the world itself does not understand too well, and that big economies like the US have not introduced it, UK have not introduced it, and now there are fights where one country is trying to introduce it and will tell you, okay, France, go ahead and introduce what they're calling the GAFATA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet. So, the 3%. And then the President of America says, it's okay, and we'll decline all your champagne, we'll put embargoes on all goods that come from France. So there's that discussion that we really need to come live to. So my take on Africa and Kenya is, we have such low-hanging fruits that we can collect tax instead of trying to create capacity on this thing that the world doesn't understand. We are trying to understand it as well. For instance, I'll give you just some interesting statistics. The census last year indicated that I stand corrected because the census is contentious as it is, 47 million Kenyans in Kenya. You can challenge it. The registered voters from the uncontested first election were around 18 million voters. Let's say these are people who are 18 and above, eligible to vote. The number of returns that were filed last year with KRA is 7 million. So my question is, the missing 11 million who are registered voters but didn't file returns, where are they? And then from the 7 million, we still have like only 3.5 were corporate and government employees, which constitute a big chunk of, the tax base in Kenya. So the other 3.5, where are these companies? Where are these people? So KRA as it is right now have such low-hanging fruits that they can go after. When they introduced presumptive tax, which was a tax on your business license, you just need to focus on numbers. Go to every person who has a licensed business permit, get a percentage of their license, and you're home and dry. If you go to Juakali, if you go to Markiti, you go to Toy Market, you go to Gikomba, and tell those people, I just want 100 bob or 50 bob every day. You tell all Boda riders in Kenya, and in Nairobi, and I'm sure there are many, I just want 50 bob every day. You have a mechanism of collecting that tax. You will meet your deficit. But if you start looking for this digital tax, number one, as you said, digital tax has evolved, and what they're really trying to tax now is just the traditional way with new method of being done. I mean, if you say you want to, like money transfers, mobile money, this business already existed. It's not a new concept. It's just a new efficient method that has come up. So for you to even try and access to that tax base, and the way even our income tax act is, okay, the Finance Act 2019 was worded, was to go for income and or output from a digital marketplace. And they say digital marketplace is any person who is buying and selling goods in the digital economy. So that has been there. I you buying and selling goods and earning income, that has been there. It has just changed. Now it's gone that instead of me having a traditional store in town, I have a shop on Facebook, I have a shop on Instagram. But that the business hasn't changed character. So whether KRA has capacity, when you're still grappling to go after basic taxes like presumptive tax, turnover tax has been an old concept. It was removed, it was introduced back on any person who is making revenues of less than 5 million a year. And then you can just hit this low-hanging fruit really. That one you can enforce it even using canjos. Just have a mechanism to enforce it and it will work. But going for this complex technical thing where we don't understand, if you read the Finance Act, they say the National Treasury will come up with regulations on how this will be taxed. If OECD is already struggling with these regulations, do we have capacity in Kenya to come up with these regulations? Will they be right? And as we discussed that digital tax is really, the digital economy in Kenya, in as much as we are growing and there's a lot of bandwidth uptake, it's still a very infant economy. If reducing my cost by not having a stall and the usual brick and mortar business where I have to, have a shop in town and pay licenses, but I can just sell from my house with reduced operational and overheads, will make me money, why then kill it by introducing digital tax? So it's a very tricky balance, and whether KRA has capacity and the African states have capacity, or whether this is a premature discussion, food for thought.
And do you have comment?
No, I'm just saying, in Uganda, they have this social media tax. It's quite unfortunate, but it's there. When you buy airtime, you go to the parlor and you buy a SIM card, and then you buy an airtime, and then you also have to pay the tax, and then they collect it immediately. I hate that it's there, but I hope we don't copy from them. But it's happening. So, but she is right. We need to focus on those low-hanging fruits. I don't know what Robert thinks. Yeah.
I agree with. I'm sure there is a there in Kenya. I think you talked about the digital economy. I'm not sure I've seen any good research in Kenya talking about how much was the gap, how much are we talking we are looking from this digital economy. I'm not sure it's much. Because for instance, if we give a classic example, Airbnb versus Selena. Now, if I book accommodation versus the app, I'll pay the money to the owner of the apartment in Kenya. That person, if he derives profit from Kenya, he is supposed to pay tax in Kenya. What does the company make? Just their commission, 10-20% out of whatever you pay. So what we are not taxing is that commission that is going to the global company. Think about the local apps. Uber versus what? We have our own, which is little car. The app in Uber is a global company, so the drivers make their money. Let's say 75% of what you pay. They are supposed to pay tax in Kenya if they make profit. What Uber make is their commission, 25%. And that is what KRA is saying. Uber, you should also be paying on your 25% commission versus little car. The drivers are paying on whatever they make from little car, and little car, which is a local company, they are also paying on their commission in Kenya. So whatever, if you compare cases where we have local companies versus the global companies, I don't think there's much that we are missing from it. But there's a hype about the digital taxation. So, I know there's a means we will say they want, they definitely do not want to, they don't maintain records, so if you tell them to maintain all your receipts and everything, they will not do that. So I know KRA is trying to do the turnover where you just pay as a percentage of your revenue and all that. And there are so many other things of potentially your revenue. But I hope we get some research somewhere saying we are too focused on this because we realize you are missing 200 billion. I highly doubt we can even collect 50 billion, even if we get to this.
Okay, so, do you have a
just to comment on what Anne said, when Uganda actually introduced that social media tax, well, initially it looked like a tax, but it was just to prevent negative news going on social media. But the ripple effect of that is the internet uptake reduced, and there are records to show that. So when you introduce taxes for such things, then what does that do to the economy? What does that do to Safaricom, that is one of the largest taxpayers, when their uptake of internet reduces? And those rightfully paying taxes in Kenya.
So, right before I open the floor to now taking questions from our live streaming, so we want to take questions from both our audience here and abroad. You all have mentioned, for example, Uganda. And so, if I'm in Uganda, probably if I use a VPN, I can probably maybe try and avoid it. I don't know. So, what question I want to answer is you and Robert as well. When we're coming up with this new taxation policies, do we also expect new ways of tax avoidance from everyone? I mean, you mentioned 8 million people who still don't pay tax.
So I think definitely you have to come up with ways of taxing, and I think the key thing, maybe from a direct tax perspective, I mean, I'm not sure it's math, but from a VAT perspective, and that's why you're seeing France, Nigeria, and South Africa, they are trying to tax from a VAT perspective, because if I'm buying advertising space from Facebook in the US, to them that will be an exported service to Kenya. There will be no VAT. If I'm buying the same from Scan Group, this is a local company, they will charge me VAT. From an indirect tax perspective, there is a bit of a disadvantage for the local company because they have to charge VAT. So even just a consumer who does not want to pay VAT, or maybe my services are exempt so it cannot deduct, it's a bit of a disadvantage. So they have to devise ways of trying to get it tax. But again, I'm not sure we have much that we are doing, but definitely it's a good thing to do. But there you go.
My opinion on that is anything that comes under a lot of scrutiny and it's a novel new idea and you really try to fight it, they just go under. I mean, these are incredibly innovative people. So just the way they come up with the dark web, they will still do their operations out of the visibility of the revenue authority. So it's very possible that if you introduce digital tax, then all these things that you're seeing now will still happen without you seeing.
Okay, so our first question from Zaka. The question is, how would tax exemptions for charities, for example, be applied in a digital economy? Any takers? So the question is, how would tax exemptions for charities and charity organizations be applied in a digital economy?
I'm imagining this a charity that would then be doing some sort of digital business or how they deliver their services in a digital manner. So you have a charity in another country, but then they also serve in another country via maybe people are using their digital platform. But then the question would be...
Maybe if I try and take a perspective. Maybe let's, for example, I'm a church and I'm asking for donations. So are donations outside other jurisdictions, for example, taxable?
Well, donations ideally should not be taxed, even in Kenya. If you are set up in Kenya and you have an exemption certificate, you should not be taxed. So I would expect the same thing should apply. If it's a donation, it's from money which has been taxed, and I'm not buying a good or service I'm giving for furtherance of activities of the organization. So I will not expect that to be taxed even with any digital tax.
So, okay, so
I think it would be very difficult to extend exemption on the digital economy to charity. In terms of, if this is a cross-border transaction and say they are, a charitable organization is buying a software from America, and you see that software would otherwise say be taxed in America. If there's a charitable organization in Rwanda that wants to buy that software, and that software should be subject to, say, VAT, then because of the cross-border taxation in the digital economy, it will be very hard to extend exemption to that charitable organization in another jurisdiction, because the laws there don't apply to you. They don't care that you're a charitable organization. So I think it will be a challenge because of the different cross-border tax treatment.
okay. So
the tax license. We have this
Kickstarter.org where I set up an account and ask people to donate to me. Other stocks, maybe you can share that. Those platforms where I go online and I say, in Kenya, the equivalent for that in Kenya is a channel, right? So now online you have Kickstarter and all these platforms where I set up an account and I say, please send money for my cause. Maybe I'm building a potato farm or something. So the money is coming from a digital means, but it's actually really for a donation. So would that be taxed? That's what you just said.
I think the question would be that are they in the business of making money, or they're just providing a platform on a pro bono basis?
Platform for you to be able to receive donations, but they do take their cut for using the platform.
Then their cut is business income. They will be expected to pay for tax on that. But on the donation, I mean, that's what it is.
Okay, so maybe at this point we can open the floor for questions. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Excuse me a bit. There is something we call these taxes you mentioned. Government sometimes can impose them and also increase them according to the value, maybe pricing, control, or maybe the decay. So we can find that taxes cannot be standard. So that one for that particular matter. So how do you address it with yours?
So you're saying taxes cannot be standard across countries. I guess if I get the question right, you are saying the digital tax should be, the normal taxes will be paid. If you are doing business in Kenya, you still pay your corporate tax according to the tax rate in Kenya. But what they are proposing is, if you do not have places in that country and you are still serving that country either indirectly or like Facebook, advertising revenue they are making out of Kenya, there will be a certain minimum tax. You'll be saying 3% of the revenue you make from Kenya will be paid that tax. Now, if Facebook was a company set up in Kenya, they will still be paying corporate tax on their revenue, anything that would be accrued in Kenya. So there will be no abolishment of what is existing. It's just a minimum tax on anyone who is rendering a service in a country where they do not have physical presence.
Hello, my name is Monique Maina, the Committee on Business Studies at the University of Nairobi. So my question is just a pickup from where the panel has left off a few points back. My question is, what do you think is the place of South-South interactions in protection of our tax base in the digital economy? The digital economy, if I were to give context to my question, the digital economy has a quote-unquote promise of widening the tax base. We want to bring in more people so that we can get more revenue for our government. However, the policy that most African governments have taken is indirect taxes, which brings a lot of unfairness, and it's rather quite a lot of tax injustice. Right off the back of that, we see a lot of African governments and developing world governments adopting OECD regulations, which are pro the companies that gather, yes, as we want to talk about. And also, as Anne has talked about, we have the unfair system that the SMEs are subject to a lot of taxation. So, do you think that there is space for Kenya, India, Brazil, and South Africa to take that space, South-South interaction in the protection of our tax base in the digital economy? And also, are we being a bit too focused on the corporate, on the legal person, opposed to the national person, when we talk about GAFA, as opposed to now looking at the effect of the digital economy on the small person who's conducting business on the digital space, considering that in the emerging economies, most of our economies are quite informal, and the informal sector tends to be, largely subject to a lot of unfair indirect taxes. Thank you.
Yes, maybe we will respond to Monique. What is there for the South to South? I think the number one thing we need to agree is that digital spaces are here with us. They are here to stay. They are busy eroding our tax bases, and they are here minimizing our revenue targets. That's why KRA can never meet its revenue targets. So the moment the South embraces the existence of the digital economy, then the next thing we need to focus our minds on is how do we tackle this issue of taxing the digital economy from our own perspective before we go to the global perspective. And this is where we realize that a country by country laws and regulations would be first be and foremost be very important in as far as designing and describing the parameters within which these digital spaces operate and within which these digital gains and profits will be looked at in terms of framework for taxation purposes, whether it's through income taxing and or VAT. The other thing that I would also say is that in terms of taxing, the focus on taxing the endpoint, which is the consumer on basis of the VAT, then I think that would be a welcome approach, but the disadvantage with it is that the profits end up with the M&A giant, tech giant, whereas you end up depriving the young, innovative personalities within your jurisdiction the ability to thrive in business through extreme taxation frameworks, or, like I said, they are not able to compete fairly with other stakeholders that have not been equally subjected to similar taxes. Yeah. So also to do with the taxation of this digital economy, the other aspect is to ensure that we conform to the right. I wish there was a means for SMEs, for example, to be granted a grace period before these digital tax aspects can apply to them, so that first they get to check their profitability before they can be directly subjected to such taxation frameworks. Then in terms of the rest of the bottom, for example, I think the applying of a minimum percentage of tax on these multinational companies that have a digital presence, say in Kenya, would work to the best interest of the revenue authority in, as opposed to ignoring the whole entity altogether. So for me, I would recommend for KRA, for example, when they're coming up, right now they have a section 3 that pronounces the existence of the digital marketplace. But again, they are leaving the whole guesswork to the minister, the CEC for finance. So for me, maybe I would recommend to start with, they have a minimum percentage that would not create trade wars with other South countries or jurisdictions to start with, or they could negotiate that as a block, come up with 1.5, 2%, 3% kind of tax framework before we can now have a consensus or build a consensus as a regional block before we come to the international table. Yeah, so that would be my comment on that.
My name is Stephanie. I'm a lawyer and I have a keen interest in tech law, so this is about my area. So first, the question is on the digital economy and data protection. The nexus between them, because as Valerie mentioned, KRA is in talks with Safaricom, provided with data for business accounts. Yeah? And last year, KRA held a session at Hilton for breakfast for they call them online sellers. So these are your Facebook stores, your Instagram stores, the small scale people, as he mentioned. And then after that, in September, they send people, as you got in, say for example, how you registered, I put in my name, Stephanie 07, Gmail, they came for the people. They say, our records, yeah, is still taxpayer. Our records show that you're paying the digital economy. and you have never filed your returns, no pay the relevant. Okay, they are well within their right to tax, yes. But how far should they go, and who is going to control them? You know, for the big companies, you can come at Safaricom and be like, you guys, you shouldn't have done that. So for the people whose returns are not even 1 million, this is still part of their personal data being stolen. At what point are we also, at what point are we also Safaricom also liable for selling? And also KRA for them compelling people, because I'm sure when they say they talk, it's not talk, you're strong arming them. You know, you have the power, just as the international community has the power of these tax regulations on hand. So the KRA is coming to say, Safaricom, Airtel, fintech company, and like, guys, I need data. It's not something you say no. It's like when your mom calls you now, are you saying no? You're going home. So KRA in this part, and precisely in that protection, is coming in as your dad, you know, as your mom. It's not giving you an option per se. Because again, as you mentioned, US and France, in France is like, oh, you want to tax us? Okay, your wine, your clothes, your everything. So how are we going to navigate that? First for the big companies, and then secondly for the small scale owners?
I think in the interest of time, we'll just take like one round of questions and then we can respond to them.
Good evening. My name is George O'Rourke from Facebook. First of all, this panel has been amazing. Such brilliant people talking. It's been, actually, I've been nodding my head. I thought I was in church. I'm going to say amen at some point. So just a few things. Firstly, just to sort of add on to what Koi was saying about the OECD process. It's a very complex process that we really have to take seriously. And I do hear the concerns about generally, as Africans, we probably have had a shorter end of the stick in these multilateral discussions. But it's interesting to note that for this particular process, Nigeria is a deputy chair. We have Ivory Coast, we have Senegal, we have South Africa, all in the steering committee. We have 24 African countries participating. So as much as sometimes we do wonder about being left out, we are in the room. As to what that means from that point of view, we don't know, because I've not been part of those discussions. And then also just generally about what we can do when it comes to things like VAT remission. You know, we do have, as we wait for the OECD process, we do have different sort of benchmarks or mechanisms that have worked in other jurisdictions. We have what's happened in the UAE, in Turkey, in South Africa, whereby if a company is willing to be a registered VAT remitter, right? The thing is, we should be able to amend our legislation so that you can almost be you have a digital ID. So that just because you've registered to actually say yes, we'll pay out, it doesn't actually mean that you have to be established in the particular jurisdiction that you're in. And I think that's important because as the global world moves, we're becoming a lot more integrated, right? So we can't have the same sort of archaic laws as before. Sorry, my apologies. Then just to a comment that Robert made, which I found very interesting. He was sort of equating users, number of users, to revenue, which, I mean, I could see definitely where you're coming from, but they're different. All these companies, because they're publicly listed companies, do have their investor reports that have exactly what the revenue is by region. So you can actually see that perhaps it's not all about just users, right? Users don't actually equate to revenue. So taxing based on users might be a bit problematic simply from that point of view. And then finally, and just on your point about Uganda, just to sort of the social media tax, you know, unfortunately, 2.5 million subscriptions were lost within 3 months of this tax being put. Now remember, 2.5 million, it's not of anybody in this room, it's people who actually were sort of looking to this tax, looking to all these social media sites and all these applications to not even just conversate, but to trade in terms of having to get somebody, if you think about somebody in the little village, your grandmother, just trying to sell a cabbage or whatever, she was the one who actually was not able to now get onto the internet. And the research does show that a lot of these users who were lost were women. So again, we have to think of the gender angle as we're talking about taxation, because as we sort of try and get as much tax as possible, are we building inequality in our society? Which is another factor to think about. Sorry for taking so long.
Good evening, my name is Njeru, a lawyer, and I run a startup. So my question is really, bearing in mind that there is this concept that one has a right to pay the least tax that you can. No one compels you to pay the most that you can. So, and my question should be directed to earning, the rest of the panelists, but mostly to earn. So, in the view of startups, when we look at OECD and what they do and their guidelines, when we look at the governments, the counties and all the taxes that they're quick on their feet with. So what do you as an entity, what do you guys do to ensure that the startups are protected? And by that I mean, by protection of the startups, I mean that what do you do to educate startups on, say, base erosion and profit shifting, which not all of it should be a bad thing. What do you do to teach startups on tax avoidance? How do you exactly tell people in this digital economy that you guys can do this and this to avoid paying this much tax? Because it's a conversation which needs to be had. And as you may come to learn, most scholarly disciplines talk about, the government's taxing people. Rarely will you get an article or something talking about the taxpayer and what they're supposed to do. So what's your view on that? Thank you.
Okay, could we... So you can talk by telling us about your incubation.
Okay, so let me address them and I go back before I tackle the legal tech incubator and well, as Esther has said, digital tax is here and is eroding a lot of profits and shifting profits from high tax jurisdiction to low tax jurisdiction. I'm not really, I can't purport to be an expert in data protection law, but then your question as to KRA being the big brother and other revenue authorities seeking to access data from businesses and coming after you, the taxpayer. It's been a global ongoing discussion and has translated to a lot of changes even in tax legislation around that. And of course now the lawyers who are advocating for rights and data protection and privacy have tried to counter that over years or over time. So just to give you a local example, in 2015, Kenya, we passed the Tax Procedures Act law that provides that the KRA has right to access information from anyone. So there are exceptions to data privacy where a revenue authority has a right to access information where they feel there is tax avoidance, tax evasion, or during an audit. So if KRA comes knocking in your door, they will ask you for bank statements. Trust me, if you don't give those bank statements, they know your bankers because you put it in your return. They'll go to Stanbic and tell them, you need this bank statements for this account. No, Stanbic is bound. The Stanbic is bound. They'll provide those documents. So, and in the digital economy space, it has been a challenge even globally because I've dealt with a live transaction where KRA asked a player in the digital economy in Kenya, we need a list of all your drivers. We need their PIN, their telephone, if they gave a sheet. Give us their PIN, give us their telephone number, give us their email address, give us how much commission you pay them. And this company not having presence in Kenya told them, I'm bound by GDPR rules because I'm in the EU region. So that's an issue. And KRA was crippled. Because now GDPR rules don't apply to Africa, they don't apply to Kenya. And because they're in Europe, they say I'm bound by GDPR rules. But then just to counter that, revenue sharing information between revenue authorities has increasingly been a big issue. Like last year, Kenya signed the UN Mutual Convention on Information Sharing that allows for common reporting standards. That means they can go to HMRC and tell them, for this company trading in the UK, we need their accounts, we need their statements, we need their profits. And because we are both parties to that treaty, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs in the UK will provide that information. So inevitably, BEPS and tax avoidance and tax evasion has been a global concern, and countries are now partnering to work around that. So it's a tricky balance between our data protection laws in Kenya and what Safaricom can give and what the tax laws say. And this is going to be, we are going to see more of this, even financial, like when FATCA came up, when America signed this FATCA law and said anyone who is America and has an indicia in your jurisdiction, you need to declare. If your postal address in a bank account, if you have a bank account with a Kenyan bank and your postal address is somewhere in Delaware, is somewhere in New York, trust you me, that bank has an obligation to file that report with the IRS in America. So, and FATCA came about a long time ago. So that's the balance. It's a difficult balance, but increasingly just to have tax evasion and non-compliance, information is going to be open to revenue authorities.
So I have done trainings on the Data Protection Act before, and I just want to say that Section 4 of the Data Protection Act in Kenya actually gives extraterritorial application. So it says, it's because it relates to Kenyan citizens, and so it applies for residents in Kenya, like wherever it is. And then also another thing to note about that act is the extremely wide exemptions that is given to government under that act. So I think it's Section 51 that has the exemptions that, exemptions to privacy and all those privacy principles in the act. And basically one of those things is public interest which has a very wide mandate. And there's an ongoing case filed by the first laws to Ogiel Tata to challenge the extremely wide exemption within that act. So there are various things it's challenging, and the wide exemption within that act is the same thing. And even the principles that bind data protection. Towards the end of that section, there's information about exemptions to public taxation. So I feel like I kind of get where I'm coming from.
I think on that, on the correction brought up by I think they are tackling aviation, not the digital economy. Definitely, Kenyans are making a lot of money from the digital economy. You have their own, we have so many invalid people in the university doing a lot of lighting for people in the UK and other countries, and you are paid by a Western Union or any other group. You are supposed to pay tax on that revenue you are making after deducting the expenses, even if people are not paying. So what we are saying is that people are making a lot of money from the digital space, but they are not paying. So Kenya is increased. I think as a country, we don't have the national pride of paying taxes. We are going to the third party. I know I will not take myself to KRA. I will go to the party who is not interested in that money. And once they give me the details, then I'll come to you. So it's about evasion. There's a lot of evasion, and that's what KRA is trying to cover. On the use of principle, that is one of the recommendations by the OECD. What they are saying is, what value is Facebook making from Kenya? It's only when you log in and an advert is prompted and you see it. So if an international company is trying to capture people across the globe, the only viewers who are going to see that advert are the people who are going to log in into that site. So in Kenya we have people logging into the site and they see the advert. And in Nigeria we have 500,000 people. Those are the only people who are seeing that advert. So in terms of the value, they will be saying the international company who is paying that for advertising, they will derive a lot of value because so many people in Kenya have seen the advert as opposed to the people in Nigeria. So that has been one of the arguments around that point.
Okay. In terms of the data protection issue, I've been looking at Section 4. It provides for some of the principles applicable in as far as the purpose and the object of the act is concerned. And I'm inclined to think that these principles will equally apply in as far as the expose on information on database on taxpayers is concerned. So they are talking about the principles of lawful processing, minimization of collection, restriction from further processing, data quality, and security safeguards. So maybe the implementation of these laws, the enforcement of these laws is what we should put to question or something like that. Yeah. So also in as far as his discussion on digital players is concerned, on value, VAT, ascertaining value for VAT subscribers, say in advertising networks, for example. The gist of determining the value of, or the total value of money that ascribes to a particular platform as opposed to another is what should be put to question here. So for example, is if we have a website, website A, let's call it website A for corporate entity A, we call it corporate entity A, and we say that it's purely a digital marketing platform, vis-a-vis corporate platform B, that is basically, that is besides digital advertising, it also does the buying and selling of goods, say Jumia, Amazon, such. So the question would be how, or the answer to the determination of the value would be whether actual value was actually prescribed to a specific network as opposed to another. Not on the face value of just looking at that specific network, but whether as a result of the specific advertisement, value was accrued in a specific jurisdiction, ascribed to a specific website or digital platform. Maybe that would be way better than just looking at it on the face value and just determining that for the sake of taxation and because they're desperately in need of capturing these eroded taxes, that we must capture the taxes, whatever the cost, whatever the means. That would be unfair to the companies in question.
All right, and finally, thank you for your question, Jerry, and for all the questions from the previous guys. They're really good. As ASEC, we represent the interests of the enablers. So the enablers here are the hubs and the VCs and the SMEs that are part of our membership. So first, you can go to asec.ke to check more about us. Plug it there. So yes, we interested in, if this is an issue of concern, yes, as policy advisor for ASEC, we are now being invited to a lot more tables to speak and lobby on behalf of our members. So if our members raise the issue of tax as something they would need capacity building for, we would organize a capacity building session where we would cover the tax issue. And the hopes is that as we support the enablers are supporting and scaling the startups. As ASEC, our job is to create avenues for internationalization. For example, last year we took startups to Israel, Norway, and other countries, right? If this tax issue again is an issue, as we improve the capacity of the hubs who are supporting the startups directly, we're hoping that the effects are cascading down. So for example, the hub will nominate you to go with us to like a foreign country, and maybe when we're in that country you're managing to make a trade because of your tech. The idea of if you have these tax issues, we're hoping that as ASEC we'll be able to support you directly as a member of one of our members. As someone who is supported by one of our members. So, yes, when we talk about tax avoidance, I think we should pay taxes, we should pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But how much we should pay to Caesar is really the bone of contention. My personal opinion is SMEs are overtaxed, and maybe there should be a fair way of taxing SMEs to balance the scorecard and give us a fair chance of competing in the international market. But yeah, let's talk further after this.
Okay. Since we're having quite the discussion here, there's a lot to unpack and probably some to pack so that we can make our own things here in Africa. But we have some questions streaming in from Nigeria actually. The guys over at the CC Hub have two questions for us. The first question is, in light of the generation of animosity in the blockchain business, How do we ensure that privacy of customers is not violated as we fight against insurgency, which is withstand big funded thereof blockchain cryptocurrency transactions? So this is a question around privacy. That is from Adeleji Balogun. If I butchered the name, I'm terribly sorry. Second is, why does the digital economy bother tax authority? What is their problem? And a question from me, just coming back down to the Kenyan scenario. We have streaming platforms such as Kiza and Usasa, and I think it was last week the president announced that there will be an introduction of a CMO, the Collective Management Organizations, to place and regulate tariffs on these platforms. What could be the consequence of that? So, yes. Over to you guys.
Well, the CMO thing is going to stifle innovation. I mean, even the guys on Skiza are paying tax already. So imagine now adding another regulator on top of the existing regulator. We're stifling innovation, my personal opinion. But just to answer the question on blockchain. Blockchain is, depending on which, the ledgers they are using, the ledger is usually public. You can actually trace down and see details of the originator of the ledger. So I don't think blockchain would hide the details of the person who originated the transaction. However, on cryptocurrency, then we have a few issues on transparency, which I think you can say more.
Okay. If we are to look at blockchain and cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, one thing to note is that all unstructured systems of payments are structured to mean that there is a lack of a legal regulatory framework, especially within the Republic of Kenya, that regulates the operations of those parameters of data used for payment purposes. Now, in as far as taxation framework in Kenya is concerned, again, I take it back to the voluntary system of compliance, as opposed to KRA coming after you to pay tax. So the presupposition is that we all presuppose that Kenyans, not just Kenyans, resident and non-resident entities are supposed to voluntarily remit their taxes to KRA. But in absence of that, which is the case most multinationals with small medium enterprises that are registered within the Republic of Kenya, I think they've been remitting their taxes as it should. In terms of how much and whether it is up to the value of what should be remitted, that is a question for KRA to ascertain as an administrative body. But in terms of the use of cryptocurrencies, you find that there are countries that have regulations on that, but there are countries that have refused to legalize it. For example, Kenya. So in as far as that is happening, then we will impose upon specific corporate entities to report, with a duty to report their income. Yeah.
Just sorry to cut you off, guys. Just to make this discussion a bit more interesting, we actually have a rep in the house from the Kenya Revenue Authority. So she'll be answering some of the questions towards the end of the session. Actually, yes. We have. She does not want to join.
I'll come up and join you. I'm not a rep either officially, but I work there. So don't stone come. However, I just wanted to make a few comments, right? The first comment is, why as Kenyans do we feel it is proper for someone not to pay taxes because they're in a digital space, yet a brick and mortar person who has a store in town pays tax? If you work and get your salary for 40,000, does the government ask you, do you want to start paying this month, next month? Not really, yeah? So as Kenyans, I think we should shift the focus from, should we be paying? We should be paying, yeah? It's how our taxes are used that is painful, right? Yeah. But we should pay tax. Otherwise, we should not be accessing infrastructure that has been put up using taxes. Why should we use roads? Why should we use water? Why should we use electricity that has been put up using other people's taxes, but you don't want to pay any? We should pay, yeah? So, from where I sit, I think, of course, we should enable SMEs to grow, yeah? Because I think we do a lot more for multinationals, which from where I sit, I don't really like. I can tell you that for free. Because those multinationals were once SMEs of another country, yeah? So we want our SMEs to get to the level where they're crossing borders and, yeah, paying the big taxes, yeah? So I think we should enable SMEs across the board, not only those in the digital space, but what I wanted to also put across to the rep of the SMEs is that I hope you're presented at the right table, yeah? Which means where the legislation is. KRA will never collect tax from you in the air. It has to be based on some legislation. So Kenyans, if you don't like the legislation, change it. Don't go after KRA. They are only implementing what is already in legislation, yeah? So make sure you're at the table where the legislation is being made or being changed. Right now, Treasury is already accepting or taking in comments from various players for the budget, yeah? So if you are not already at that table, the old men and women are making the decisions, yeah? And those decisions are going to affect you. So if you're not at that table, you're missing out. And I've sat at some of those forums, and the way those people think is very different from what we think. I can tell you that for sure. So if you're not there to influence that space, then you will be caught up in what their thoughts are of what works for us.
Please take the last question, the last 1 to 3 questions. 1 to 4.
This is a
1 to 3, 4. And then after this, you can just meet the panelists. We have a networking session after this. You can grab like drinks and your hands, and then you can meet the network. Okay?
Well, thank you. My name is Christine. And someone mentioned about the dark web. And I was wondering, the question of identity. Now that tax is a legitimate business, look at the onion router, for instance. A lot of activities taking place in the dark web. Lots of profits, no taxes. Now, assuming we succeed in creating a matrix for taxation in the digital economy, will we then say we want to tax illegal entities? Will we then be going after inexistent illegal entities? How will we solve the problem of identity? Because tax is a legitimate business, and we want to tax people who earn out of legitimate businesses. But now we have the question of other people running the dark web and like the onion router, making lots of profits in human trafficking, in things that are unspeakable. We then saying the authorities like, they are going after illegal entities so that they can get money into an economy that is already trading.
Since Crispy wants to put Chapo in more trouble than it really is.
Thank you so much. I think this question is lively and I think personally I'm very fair about. Probably a couple of you maybe comments or questions. First of all, I think towards the end of the first presentation there was some sort of submission or something like that that KRA has not involved in that report. Or something like that. That they collect revenue, per se. I think it's more than that in my humble view. Because most of these policies around taxation, expenditure, even the fiscal policy and all that, do originate from there. Maybe it's the level of approval and consensus building and all that. So, listening to the discussion this evening, then I think the biggest challenge is the jurisdictional issue. So as I think, as a community of lawyers and all that, I'm not a lawyer myself, then what kind of legislative avenue or instrument or some sort of global consensus toward an instrument that encourages self-disclosure that can be worked, towards ensuring that this sort of fiscal hemorrhage, because the reality is that sales are there, revenue is however little or whatever that's there is moving out. So how can some of these small countries, especially African countries, get into this through a legislative, whether a global instrument or something like that can be achieved? Because there's also digital rights around those things. Then also tied to that is the global instruments, where I think someone talked about the UN having a framework of 3%, which in my view is a step in the right direction. But again, the reason why people sort of look at the tax man with some sort of concern is that we pay this, but can we see value for this money? In that respect, then, can we have a global instrument or consensus or framework where we say these multinationals or tech-based revenue generation, you sort of put 3%. But again, you say out of this revenue that is collected by the taxman, then put also certain conditions that will improve digital service provision. For example, building certain, you put such express conditions. For example, you say provide this infrastructure to improve digital connectivity, for example, like the way the lady has talked about. You say connectivity also improves consumption. Like you collect 3% from all these entities, you get a resource envelope of this much. Then the global instrument or something, the consensus will be provide this amount of money for this kind of services. For example, national pricing system. So that if somebody wants to grow for you a certain product that bought through the digital services, then I don't incur a lot of expenses, only you and asking where are you exactly, something like that. So affordability, SME growth, programs that are now from the fiscal policy side to enable better digital services like that. So the question then will be, are there scenarios where if the UN has proposed 3%, then on the other side, it also compels governments or jurisdictions to invest as much into certain enabling, for purpose of affordability, connectivity, and all that. What sometimes I saw government trying to do what's called Wi-Fi in public spaces, because this is also related to rights of people to access democratic opportunities and all that. Thank you.
I think that's where ladies, ladies' perspective. I think, we also want to hear what you guys think about this.
Hi, so mine is just a chipping and actually reinforce what was said by our panelists in regards to KRA assessing data, personal data. And KRA assesses this data legally through the tax laws. It's been enabled by the acts to access your data, that is either from the financial institutions or even Safaricom, and to even enable it and even assist it in getting this information from you, the public. There's also the Financial Reporting Center that is mandated to report on identification of proceeds of crime and money laundering, that is suspicious transactions, as per Section 21 of POCAMLA. So, because of this, and all this other financial regulator and their mandate to aid in identification of proceeds of crime, KRA gets this information, and that's how I was answering to the lady who was concerned on KRA maybe sort of infringing on getting the financial information. So there's so many, there are legislation and bodies that have been put in place to also aid KRA in getting tax. And as long as you're not paying tax, you're avoiding. So I just wanted to clarify that also.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, I just asked of that. Guys, remember this is a safe space. We encourage conversations as long as one is fighting. So after this, remember we have some snacks and a great networking session, also a great time for you guys to exchange some thoughts. We ask each other some questions and debate where we feel appropriate. So just a quick 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm commenting on this question to do with taxing the dark web, if they would get all of the profit or the income. So, okay, before I get to that point, one, I need to clarify that the suggested solutions are to tax the income and not profit. Valerie, if I'm right. Yes, if I'm right. Yes, mostly the suggestion is to tax the income of the multinational in a specific jurisdiction and not to tax the gains and profits as it has been the system in Kenya. And then now going to the taxation of the dark web as an illegal source of income, I wish to refer you to the Income Tax Appeal number 19 of 2017 in Kenya. That was the opening of the Pandora box in terms of taxation framework in Kenya, where now tax utilities and the tax administrative framework are allowed to tax income from illegal sources. In this case, it was about an illegality in terms of the contract. If I'm right. Yeah, and the decision in the tax appeal was to the fact that the taxation of income, gains and profits from illegal activities are taxable in Kenya. Now, I go back to the question on legislative avenue, whether we have, whether there is a deliberate intention to come up with legislative means to taxation of digital gains and profits. I would say the inclusion of the digital marketplace in our legal framework in Kenya, maybe, in my opinion, was a positive step forward towards the recognition of digital spaces, the recognition of income and gains and profit from digital spaces. In terms of global approach, we are looking at the nexus rules and the profit sharing rules on how countries will be able to benefit from tax revenues in that instance. So, in as far as the 3% income, and then I would look at it from a point of cost effectiveness on part of the revenue administration, and also the advanced frameworks, whether we can invest in advanced technological frameworks and technocrats that would help us capture these lost revenues for to enhance development in Kenya. Because at the end of the day, the importance of these revenues is to finance development, finance our budget as a country. So the issue would be looking at the cost effectiveness of taxing the digital economy versus the revenue accrued from the process. That's all. My final comment is that I'm really grateful for being here. And I've built so much on my research. You guys have given me ideas I never thought of. So this year I'm going to capture some of the ideas in my research. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Yeah, first, it's been a really exciting conversation. I'm happy to have been a part of it. With regards to the question on identity, I think we're still trying to figure out and deal with the issue of figuring out who is at the other end of the web. And this will help with solving not just the tax issue, but even cyberbullying and other issues. So I haven't come across any tech that has sorted that out yet, so until we do, it's a work in progress. My final remarks are, I'm hoping we can find a better way to tax SMEs and other tech makers as we build tech that crosses boundaries. Again, like my peers have said, should we pay tax? Yes, we should. Just how much is really the question of contention. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
I think the questions have been well addressed, so I may not need to go there. So for me, it's to say thank you for this opportunity, and definitely the discussion will keep on further. Thank you.
For me, it's been really exciting to engage with all of you and to partake in this very interesting discussion. From a tax perspective, digital tax is more of, it requires a lot of thinking to it and a lot of policy regulation around it. And KRA, National Treasury have really been trying to do stakeholder engagement. I know there's one coming up in February. So feel free to contribute your ideas, feel free to attend those meetings if you see the invite anywhere. And yeah, tax should be rightfully paid. They say only two things are certain, death and taxes. So tax is just, it's certain and should be rightfully paid. As a parting shot for me is this being Lawyers Hub with a lot of people in the tech sector and the SME Association here with a lot of people developing